The one that either talked to you, a spouse, or left a message on your voicemail. I had a lot of great conversations with a lot of people that weren't able to be here, and I'm very glad I took the time to call everyone. I probably made close to 200 phone calls. I gotta give you credit, being public servants, you answer the phone. You know, when I call people in my church for volunteers or whatnot, it's like I leave voicemails. So that was a different experience for me, but I did enjoy it. For those of you that I didn't get to talk really in depth with, how we got here is we're from Saratoga, the community that's pushing for a ban countywide on spray irrigation of manure. We've done that after doing some research on the issue and finding that we don't believe it's a safe practice currently to be used widespread. Christy will go a little bit more into that, but what we found in the 6 months to a year that we've been working with the county board is nobody else is showing up to the county board meetings. And that concerned us. We could be shooting ourselves in the foot, for all we know, by letting everybody know what we're pushing and what we're pursuing. But we felt it was important to hear and let the towns know and the villages know what we're doing, so that if there is a concern on why this should not be banned countywide, we want to hear that. And so that's our intent, to show you what our reasonings are, what we've learned, where our concerns are, why we're proposing a ban, and then to hear some dialogue or some question and answers, and to take that back to the county supervisors or encourage you guys to contact the county board on this issue. We don't want to hurt anybody's livelihood. And we can talk about it during the discussion time, what I've learned from other farmers and townspeople that I've talked to on the phone. But I'll just let Christy take it from here then. So thank you again for coming out.
Thank you, Gail, for kicking us off here tonight. As Gail said, my name is Christy Greening, and I'm a member of the Protect Wood County group, which originally started in Saratoga, but really we are not confined to the borders of Saratoga any longer. We have actually spread our wings quite far. So after Gail's great introduction, I really don't need to repeat all that, and we're going to move right on with our presentation. Can everybody hear me okay? Good. Okay, there's three main questions that we want to answer for you folks here tonight. Number one, who is Protect Wood County and its neighbors? There's definitely been some miscommunication maybe about who we are and how we got started. So we want to clear that up right from the beginning. Then we're going to address why you should be concerned about spray irrigation coming to your communities here in Wood County. And then what you can do as a board to protect your citizens and your economic interests of your community. On June 6, 2012, our town really was shell-shocked. Two men delivering a binder full of information showed up at Heidi Koleski's home. She is our town clerk, with the cover letters for Lorelei Fuhrer, who was our town building inspector. And inside that binder was essentially the proposal for the Golden Sands Dairy from the Wysocki family of companies. That same day, the Wisconsin DNR and the Wood County Land and Conservation Department received the same binder of information, and residents of Saratoga found in their mailbox a flyer from the Wysocki group stating their intention of siting their proposed dairy right inside Saratoga. Members of the community at first started to question, what exactly is a CAFO, a concentrated animal feeding operation? What is this going to do to our community? What exactly is it? Many members of our community went out to a tour that the Wysocki group promoted at their Juneau County facility, the Central Sands Dairy. And it was shortly after the announcement, shortly after going through the tours there at the dairy, that many of the citizens of Saratoga became very concerned. We took our concerns to the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources, and it was about the beginning of August at that time, end of July, beginning of August, and we were told we had 30 days. 30 days to submit any concerns that we have for the DNR to consider while permitting or looking into permitting this facility. And so really at that point, the Protect Wood County and its neighbors group was formed. Hundreds showed up from our community to form committees in regards to looking at concerns with roads, studying research, identifying what we should and shouldn't know about these types of facilities coming into our community. And what was the start of a very long journey brings us here today. Essentially, what started out as random concerns about this proposed farm to the town of Saratoga quickly became a devastatingly hard lesson to the bigger picture of what was really happening to our community, and as we learned what was really happening and is still happening to the state of Wisconsin. Once our initial research was finished, and it was focused on the immediate perspective of just looking at Saratoga, we realized that state advocacy was really needed statewide. Our current laws are working against both us as citizens and our small community farmers, and they're in favor of big business at all cost. So out of necessity, not only to protect our own citizen interests, we were really forced to monitor state legislation and the dirty deals that were occurring really behind our backs in Madison, ones that we were never aware of. And quite honestly, for many of the folks like me, we didn't really pay much attention to because it didn't affect us. And now that it was, our eyes were open. As a result of all of the research that we did, the education that we made it a point to take on upon ourselves, we've had members of our Protect Wood County and its neighbors group testify in front of DATCAP, which is the Department of Agriculture, Trade, and Consumer Protection. We've had members in front of the Senate Natural Resources Committee and the Assembly's Committee for Environment and Forestry. So as you can see, we were no longer a small group of just concerned citizens, but we've become a very active, very educated grassroots organization that is advocating for the protection of our natural resources and the protection of its citizens on a statewide level. It will almost be 3 years coming up here in June. So really throughout the last 3 years, numerous groups from across the state have come together to share our resources and to share our information. Initially, where we were really the kindergartners in the playground, and we were seeking desperately from others to soak up as much knowledge as we could, we now are really seen as one of the leading go-to groups in Wisconsin for information and education in regards to these topics. We would not be where we are today without the combined efforts of folks from Nakusa, Port Edwards, Grand Rapids, all of Wood County, and especially our close neighbors in Rome and Adams County, who have been alongside us every single step of the way. This past summer, almost 1 year ago, we were able to host we were contacted actually by the Humane Society of the United States, and we were able to host a gathering here in Saratoga with both the Wisconsin director of the USHS and the Tennessee regional director, and we were able to take them on a tour of Saratoga and also around the KFO in Juneau County, the Central Sands Dairy. And we were also able to host a gathering for the former 2010 Goldman Environmental Prize winner Lynn Henning, along with Scott Dye from the nationally renowned Socially Responsible Agriculture Project. So again, we are reaching out and we have connected with these groups, so we know that the information that we're presenting is based in research and fact, and we have that support. There is a perception that our group of citizens, because we started out small, that we are still small and we're just a small town, a small group of people, fighting a big farm or overreacting to a big farm, and that's simply just not the truth. It's not the case. We have many family farmers within the Protect Wood County and its neighbors umbrella. Saratoga is not an agricultural community, but that does not mean that we don't have family and friends that are farmers and that enjoy and are very proud of that profession. And they stand right alongside us. So that brings us, what brings us here today? And as you can see, that is a picture of center pivot irrigation system, spraying liquid waste on a crop field. This practice specifically is why we are presenting here tonight and why we've asked you to come. We feel it is only appropriate and important to inform you about the hazards of spray irrigation of manure and why it's important to stop it from coming to Wood County before it takes hold here. Last January, our group worked to initiate a countywide ban, or ordinance, to ban spray irrigation of liquid waste here in Wood County. The idea originated for two main reasons. Number one, obviously the proposed CAFO to our area in Saratoga, which is also notorious for its massive amounts of spray irrigation. It is the same owners that own the Central Sands Dairy out in Juneau County, and they are looking to mirror their facility by us in Saratoga. And secondly, after studying this practice for so long, we have come to understand that the extensive environmental and health issues that go hand in hand with this practice and with this type of waste disposal. So it has been almost a year since our initial presentation to the Judicial and Legislative Committee of Wood County, and that was last July, in fact, where they voted to send the resolution to the county board to enact an ordinance to ban spray irrigation of manure. Much has happened since that time. An ad hoc committee was created. Different researchers and things have come in and done presentations. And long story short, we're still fighting the uphill battle to get this ban enacted and to protect the citizens here in Wood County. Our main concern is simple. For those of you that don't know, Wisconsin is open for business. And I'm not speaking in regards to the governor and how he uses that term. I'm speaking in regards to the different facilities and the large-scale agriculture that's coming in. Wisconsin is known for the dairy state, but that is slowly changing. As numerous states continue to close their doors to the large-scale CAFO-type facilities and the waste that they produce, these industrial-sized farm operators are looking to move their farms, and they are looking directly at Wisconsin. March 17th, 2014, so almost exactly 1 year ago, the Wisconsin DNR, in combination with the pork and the poultry industries, hosted an informational meeting about CAFO expansions in those two production areas here in Wisconsin. So they may not be here yet, but we have indications that they're coming. January 20th, I contacted the Wisconsin Department of DNR just as how many CAFOs are coming, what kind of permits do you have, because I had heard that there were five new pending CAFOs coming to the area, or coming to Wisconsin, excuse me, correct that. What I found out is there was actually 33. There are 33 new CAFOs awaiting permit in Wisconsin, and so you have to wonder, is your community next? Saratoga did not think we were going to be the one, and we are. So our town and its citizens, we were definitely blindsided by the proposal of the dairy. We are literally in the battle of a lifetime to protect and preserve our way of life, and we don't want to see any other township go through what we're going through right now. And so again, that brings us here today, and why we're going to try to educate you as much as we can. We know that we have a very proud heritage here in central Wisconsin of family farms and sustainable agriculture, but these types of facilities, these large-scale agricultural facilities, do not promote either of those ideals. And if you look at the list I have there at the bottom, you'll see that these types of facilities are moving into the area. The Golden Sands Dairy is the one proposed here for Wood County. There's 3 more proposed for Marathon, 1 for Portage, 1 for Jackson. I specifically picked those counties because those are the ones that surround Wood County. So as a collective group, I think we all need to start paying attention, regardless of what kind of communities you come from. We have talked to many of our local farmers and local family farmers, and they do fear that these large-scale type operations moving into the area will dramatically impact their livelihoods. And as we progress through this presentation, I ask that you please keep in mind the type and size of facility that I'm going to be referencing. I'm not referencing our local family-friendly farmers that are practicing sustainable agriculture. I am really focusing on those that are trying to move into the area. So as we progress, please keep that in mind. So that moves us to our second part of the presentation. And with this second part of the presentation, I have 3 goals. One is to quickly outline the manure handling methods that are prevalent in Wood County and those that are newly proposed. Second, to explain what liquid waste can legally consist of in today's large-scale farming practices. And then share the concerns for our environment, our water, and our health with the practice of spray irrigation of liquid waste. Very quickly, what we see here up on the screen is 4 typical manure dispersal systems. We have the knifing of the liquid waste directly down into the ground, spray application from a tanker truck, the traveling gun with the drag hose, and the pivot irrigation system with the high pressure end gun. I realize that some of you are from farming communities and some of you are going to know all the information and much, much more than I'm going to be able to present here this evening. But bear with me for those folks that maybe don't know this information. I appreciate that. The knifing method injects the manure right into the ground. Overall, the smell is reduced from using this type of method. It is definitely prevalent up in the northern areas of Wood County. The manure is not susceptible to wind conditions because obviously it's put right into the ground. There's positive and negatives to every single type of manure disposal. I mean, there's just no way to get around that. Some of the negatives that we have listed: possible over-application. It's weather dependent, and this is a big concern for our farmers up in the northern part of Wood County when we have the wet fields and the fields that aren't draining fast enough to take their big heavy machinery out onto the field. So with this type of method, it is weather dependent. From an environmental standpoint, however, it is noted that these injection systems place all the manure below the soil surface, performed well consistently in numerous studies that have been conducted, at reducing the nutrient loss and runoff and ammonia volatilization relative to surface application of manure. So compared to application methods, this is much cleaner and less intrusive to the local residents. Tanker truck application is also another method used here in Wood County, a prevalent one. From tanker truck application, the larger droplet size of the manure that comes out of the spray nozzles reduces the effect of drift. There is procedures in place through the Wisconsin Department of DNR and different statutes where the manure has to be worked into the soil within so many days and that type of thing. In regards to negatives, again, with any type of procedure, you can have over-application or pooling of manure in the fields. Potential for overspray into ditches and creeks and roadways if the operator is running too close to those locations. And sometimes there is the excrement that gets on the roadways as they pass back and forth. The traveling gun is one that is not so prevalent. There is definitely positives to using a traveling gun. It is portable. It can be taken from field to field. Depending on the pressure of the end gun, it can be a fairly controlled circumference and area, or you can see it in both different pictures there. The one on the right, you can see that those droplets are much larger. The circle area for that traveling gun would be much smaller, and drift would be less of a possibility. Where you look at the picture on the left, that is a very high pressure end gun and traveling gun. That manure stream is shooting far distances, which means that liquid is getting aerolized in much smaller droplets, and it does cause a potential for drift and contamination of different waterways in the area. And then there is a center pivot or pivot irrigation system, which we are really going to spend the majority of the evening speaking about. Again, with every system, there's positive and negatives. Positives, you can definitely be spreading your nutrients throughout the growing season. It is cost effective to the farmers or operators that choose to use it, and it definitely can reduce truck traffic on your local roadways. Negatives, however, the manure that gets sprayed high into the air is definitely susceptible to drift and the wind currents within. The liquid manure is full of pathogens and contaminants and different things that we're going to discuss here later. And contamination of our waterways definitely is prevalent when that drift occurs. Pictured here are drag lines. And drag lines can be utilized with all 4 application methods that we just talked about, but more specifically with the traveling gun and the pivot irrigation systems. Drag lines are used to transport the liquid waste to the fields. For spiking and pull-behind methods, the drag lines are mainly seen in the spring and fall application times. So a few weeks in the beginning, a few weeks in the end of the growing season, that is when you'd see those drag lines out alongside the road. With center pivot systems, drag lines are observed throughout the growing season. They are a constant fixture along field perimeters and along the ditches of residential homes that are in the path of the irrigated field. Lines can be buried underground with connection pipes, as you see there on the left. But unfortunately with drag lines, they must cross whatever environmental obstacles are in their path. So as you see there on the top picture, we have drag lines, probably alongside a county road, and there in the middle on the bottom, they're crossing a local waterway. And unfortunately, drag lines are susceptible to both environmental and human elements, resulting in leaks and ruptures. When looking at the center pivot irrigation specifically, those are the lines that are not typically rolled up and stored in between uses. With center pivot irrigation systems, those hoses and drag lines can be out in the elements 24 hours a day throughout the whole growing season. So to put it in a little bit of perspective, when we consider the township of Saratoga, and for you folks, please consider your own townships, the proposal that we have in our township, there's 127 homes that are directly adjacent to a field that would be sprayed with liquid manure. And some of those homes are getting sprayed on multiple sides. So it's not just the front yard or the backyard. They're spraying on multiple sides. So there is a potential for those drag lines to be outside a residence for up to 8 months out of the year. It is very important to note, and I definitely want to clarify and state clearly that the Protect Wood County and its neighbors group is not trying to ban the use of manure in the farming practices of our Wood County farmers. That is not our goal, that is not our expectation. We are asking for an ordinance specifically to ban the aerial spraying of manure through the high pressure end guns and center pivot systems. When we first presented the idea of an ordinance banning spray irrigation, we were immediately attacked by opponents, such as the Dairy Business Association, who tried to state that we were against farmers. Many of our community citizens erroneously assumed the same thing, that we were trying to take the use of manure away from farmers. And that partly could be our fault, that maybe we did not clarify and speak with you folks like we are today to clarify exactly what we are trying to do. The practice of spray irrigation of waste is what we are targeting. So that leads us to our second part of the presentation. Why should you be concerned about manure spray irrigation coming to your community? I think this question really will answer itself as we start to describe what exactly is in the manure of these large-scale facilities, liquid waste, and try to explain what legally can be put into the waste of these large-scale farming practices. Many farms, big and small, family-owned or industrial size, really doesn't matter. You all have to store your manure somewhere. For large-scale facilities, for example, CAFOs, a concentrated animal feeding operation, anaerobic digesters and lagoons are two of the ways that they store their liquid manure. However, the digester is the main purpose is to capture methane gas and then convert the energy back to the farm facility. The major misconception with the digesters is that only manure goes into a digester and what comes out of that digester is absolutely clean and absolutely safe. And that's just not the truth. Very quickly, just to run through, for anyone that reads the news, you have heard about the digesters in the past year. We've had digesters here in Wisconsin that have leaked, one that exploded, some that have malfunctioned. But all in all, there are definitely some myths that I think I would like to clear up first before we continue on here. Number one, anaerobic digesters create a clean fertilizer alternative. It's not true. Over 90% of pathogens found in waste are found in the liquid portion. And that was from Mark Borkhardt, who is the U.S. Department of Agriculture. Both solids and liquids from digesters can contain high levels of nitrates, phosphorus, bacteria, chemicals, and other sickening agents. Myth number 2, anaerobic digesters kill 99% of pathogens making digester byproduct state. Although digesters do change the composition of waste, it does not guarantee that pathogens or other sickening agents are reduced to levels within the human threshold for safety. The third myth, digesters block the release of toxic fumes as hydrogen sulfide and ammonia. Hydrogen sulfide and ammonia remain after digestion and have severe health risks to the local community. And the last one, a fluid from a digester eliminates the smell of manure. A fluid from a digester still smells. It just smells different. Numerous reports from residents living around these types of anaerobic digesters report that digester matter actually smells worse than the actual manure from a farm. And again, the purpose of these digesters is to capture the methane for energy. It is not for cleaning of the manure to make it safe. So now it is time to really start looking at what is exactly in the manure left by these large-scale facilities and what is allowed to go into their digester. Obviously, we know that into the digester goes manure, the famous liquid gold of every farm. We understand it's used here in Wood County, and we're not against it being used in Wood County. But with these large-scale facilities, the manure isn't exactly the same. When we start talking about these large-scale agricultural facilities, there's definitely a higher concentration of certain things that go into the manure. And first and foremost, it's the chemicals. So regardless of what the industrial farm operator wants us to believe, what they call manure on their barn floor isn't just manure. Many different types of chemical agents are used within these large facilities, and they are dumped right into the digester along with the manure. Everything from cleaning agents, disinfectants, to the actual manure itself, it all ends up in the same place. Pictured here is a footbath. Oops, sorry about that. Pictured here is a footbath used for multiple purposes, from alleviating pain from animal sores and cuts to the simple cleanliness and health of the animal. Footbaths contain at least 2 different types of disinfectants, depending on the agents used and the size of the bath itself. A typical chemical bath can service up to 100 to 250 animal passes before needing to be replenished or changed. And unfortunately, these same chemicals go to the same place where the manure goes, right into the digesters. Copper sulfate, formalin are 2 commonly used ingredients. Additionally, zinc sulfate, zinc chloride, liquid hand soap, rock salt, additives to the copper sulfate, all those chemicals go to the same place. And eventually they come back right up through the digester into the irrigation systems and are sprayed on the fields and around the homes of the folks living adjacent to them. Oops, no, I think I'm going the wrong direction. Sorry, folks. Here we go. The other big secret that these large-scale facilities don't necessarily want everybody to know is what else they can put into these digesters. Up to 10% of a lagoon or digester's content can be what the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources calls non-additional or non-agricultural additional additives. The list is there on the slide. It's slaughterhouse waste, the blood, the hair, the paunch of animals, sludge from factories, lime, cattle truck wash, all these different things. Up to 10% of the lagoon or the digester can be these non-agricultural additional additives. So when you think of meat rendering plants, for example, these are not animals necessarily that have low doses of antibiotic. Some could and may have bovine growth hormone. All those things live within the meat and the entrails of those animals, and they can be dumped right into the digester. Still hard to believe. But the proof is in the paperwork. What you see here is actually DNR records obtained through open records request. And this happens to be for the Rosendale Dairy in Rosendale, Wisconsin. This is a permit approved for the facility to accept additional additives into their digester. And under the section waste source, it details meat slaughtering operations and meat packaging operations. And unfortunately, I didn't bring my little laser pointer here to point that out for you, but it is there. Sandy Bay Mink Ranch is just another facility here in Wisconsin that accepts additional additives into their digester. They're from Mishicot, Wisconsin. Their paperwork states that they accept downed animals from JBS and American Foods, which implies that something is wrong with the animal. Be it sick, be it exhausted, be it at the end of its life. For some reason, it is a downed animal. Sandy Bay Mink Ranch slaughters the animals themselves. The meat is fed to the mink, and the entrails and stuff are placed into the digester. Number 3 is very small up there, but I will read it. It says specifically, the paunch stream is the contents of the cow's digestive system, which separated during the slaughterhouse process. The second stream is a sludge of the wastewater pretreatment system. This stream consists of paunch, fogs, which is fats, oils, and grease, blood, and any other organic material in the water. 4 and 5 just kind of state how much of that they can use, but number 6 is the part that is very concerning. It says the waste will be processed in an anaerobic digester with retention time of at least 22 days. After digestion, the effluent will be processed by screw press to separate the solids and the liquids from the single stream. The liquid portion will be land applied, while the solids are sold for other beneficial uses. So again, you think of all those things going into a digester, and now they're land applied around your homes. The true atrocity of this part of the situation, and luckily we don't have this happening here in Wood County, is that the DNR does not even keep a master list of what facilities are currently using this practice. They do have to fill out a permit, so the DNR somewhere in their paperwork is aware that they're there, but they do not have a master list that they keep for Wisconsin. In order to find out who is using additional additives and putting it into their digesters or their manure lagoons, you have to do an open records request on every single facility. Just very quickly, the end result of the digester, solids and liquids are separated through what we call a press of some sort. There's many different kinds. Here you see the solid that are coming out of a digester, and those can be typically land applied, or they're put in bags for fertilizer. And then we have the liquid waste, which is left over. And this, no more during the DNR paperwork is this called manure. It's called slurry, or liquid waste. And this is what comes out of our irrigation systems when we're talking about center pivot irrigation. There is definitely no doubt that there will be opposing arguments that not every facility that has a digester in Wisconsin puts additional additives into their digester, and that is 100% true. Not every facility uses additional additives. But the scary piece of that is that none of them are denied the right if they fill out the permit. There's definitely things they can and cannot use in a digester, but all they have to do is fill out that permit, and they have the opportunity to possibly do it. So now we'll let you know a little bit more about what is slurry or what is liquid waste. We kind of use those terms interchangeably. It really leads us to, why are we concerned? Why are we concerned that this liquid is getting sprayed around our homes? And there's many different concerns, from drift to water quality, groundwater contamination, health concerns, and the impact even on our communities. Residents from all over the area, not just by our place in Saratoga, have voiced a variety of concerns regarding the proposed CAFO and the practice of liquid waste dispersal through center pivot irrigation systems. Concerns range from property values plummeting to health concerns, and the list goes on and on. Already in our township of Saratoga, property values have decreased and homes are not selling. There is really a slow exodus of families leaving our township and not many that are wanting to come in. Our biggest concern with the liquid waste that would be spray irrigated is with pathogens. Numerous research studies conducted have verified the types of pathogens found in liquid waste. All are present to various degrees. Some have the ability to cause serious illness and others do not. Previous research conducted verified that pathogens do travel from the manure lagoons and digesters through the irrigation system and do become airborne. And there's current studies going on right now in Wisconsin trying to determine how long these pathogens stay viable and can cause illness versus how long before they die once they're aerosolized in the air. The Center for Disease Control in 2010 stated that there were 150 known pathogens in liquid manure. Since that study and since that time, the number has gone up. It's now over 160, with the last number I heard of 167. Listed here are 4 significant pathogens found in manure, each having the potential to significantly impact human health. Giardia and Cryptosporidia are water protozoa of livestock origin. Both are found in animal manure and not easily destroyed except through filtration. Cryptosporidium parva causes gastrointestinal illness. If contracted by drinking contaminated water, it is resistant to conventional medical treatment, and it can be fatal. And rotavirus, most commonly recognized pathogen in manure, can survive long periods of time outside of the host. One study found that the virus could survive up to 6 months in a manure storage facility. There are 3 basic ways pathogens transmission occurs in our environment, both fecal and oral transmission, so putting dirty hands or dirty objects in your mouth, inhalation of the airborne contaminants, and through your drinking water or incidental water consumption during recreational activities such as swimming in your local lake. Basic side effects include things such as having chills, to fever, and to eventually all the way down to death. Simply knowing the possible pathogenic content of this liquid waste should make it pretty easy to understand why we are concerned about the practice of spraying manure through high-pressure end guns, specifically in Saratoga and around all our homes. But project that into your own communities. I know we have a variety of folks here today. I'm not sure what your population density is, if you come from a town or if you come from a very rural area that is based in agriculture. But think about that. And would you want that sprayed around your home? So when one considers those pathogens found in liquid waste, it is easy to understand why the drift of this waste is our second area of concern that we're going to discuss with you folks here tonight. Again, according to Mark Borchardt from the USDA, drift can contaminate our environment in 3 different ways: through surface transmission, water transmission, and through our food. Any surface area that drift lands on can be a possible transmission site for pathogens and waste particles. Family homes adjacent to fields run the highest risk of contamination from aerosolized liquid waste. As I said before, in Saratoga, we have 127 homes that would be directly adjacent to proposed fields where this type of irrigation of liquid waste would occur. We have 500 within a quarter mile. So even if the immediate drift doesn't hit your home and doesn't hit your outside furnishings, that doesn't mean that the dried particles wouldn't meet your property later on. So when I think of my home, we definitely have children's toys outside. We have our outdoor furniture and our cooking services. All of these places can be landing spots for drift and the potential contamination sites. I'd just like to take a time to mention, in your packets, we actually have testimonials from drift occurring into homes right here in central Wisconsin. Testimonials are included from the Central Sands Dairy in Juneau County, town of Armenia, and the New Chester Dairy in Adams County. And those are firsthand testimonials provided. When we think of surface water contamination, we think of the classic definition of our creeks, our streams, our lakes, our rivers, and our ponds, all which can be directly impacted by drift and overspray of liquid waste. Drift and overspray, though, does not have to land directly on our lakes and our rivers to cause contamination. Overspray can land in drainage ditches, which then carry contaminants to our local waterways. A 1998 study by the Environmental Protection Agency states that drift contains ammonia that causes oxygen depletion in water, which itself can kill aquatic life. Ammonia also converts into nitrates, which can cause nutrient overloads in surface waters. But when you think about it, take that one step further. We have unconventional surface waters right in our own areas. The puddles that your children play in, the swimming pools in your front yard, or your pet's watering dishes, all have the potential for pathogen and particle contamination from drift associated with spray irrigation. Would you take the odds with your family, knowing that that is possible? Pictured here is a manure pooled on a corn crop. These same pathogens, chemicals, and additives are in these tiny pools of liquid that are also found in the digesters and the lagoon. For some, it puts in perspective more clearly why we're directed to wash our produce before we eat it. And although crops like this are typically made for the animals to eat, we have to remember that we're talking about drift here. So I have a garden, and I resided in an area that is directly across the street from where a field may be irrigated with liquid manure if the proposed Golden Sands dairy would come in. Just because my garden wouldn't have these pools of manure liquid dropped on them doesn't mean my produce wouldn't be contaminated by the drift. Drift is a reality, and they're seeing it in the court systems more and more, especially over in Door County. The grape growers have been to court a few different times now, as adjacent farmers are using pesticides and herbicides, and that drift of their pesticides and herbicides are coming over into the grape orchards. And you can read about those both in the Green Bay Gazette and other local news sources in that area. Our third topic of concern with spray irrigation is our surface waters and our groundwaters. Controversy over liquid waste irrigation is exploding in the media, and literally due to grave concerns with the safety of the practice and the negative impacts it's currently causing on the environment. The picture there on the left is of Spud Creek, that's in Juneau County, Wisconsin. That creek runs adjacent to and in between fields that are currently sprayed with liquid manure from the Central Sands Dairy. The picture there on the right is the Kewanee River, who has already implemented manure spray ordinances around in that area to try to halt any further contamination of their waterways, which is already contaminated due to overspreading on karst bedrock. So creeks, drainage ditches, lakes, and rivers can all be contaminated due to field runoff and overspray from these systems. Irrigation overspray is a leading cause of surface water contamination. Just to clarify, these pictures here are not of liquid manure being sprayed. This is water. It could have pesticides and herbicides in it, I wouldn't know. But what I really would like you to see here is how far those end guns are shooting, both over the road and across the road and into the woods. This is out at the Central Sands Dairy in Juneau County. Myself and many others from our group have toured this area multiple times, and both of these fields that you see here in the picture do get sprayed with liquid waste. So if they're spraying water over the road, you can only assume that the liquid waste is going over the road as well. And quite honestly, the overspray has to go somewhere. This is a washout area observed on the north side of State Highway 73, east of County Highway U, just less than 1 mile into the Portage County line. We're not sure if this washout is from a huge storm or if it's just the sand that gave way due to irrigation of this field. But the bottom line is, and unfortunately we couldn't get it all in this picture, this washout goes right to a drainage ditch. Right into an area that will take that water and that contaminants away from the field. This is also a field in the current a proposal for the Golden Sands Dairy that would be spraying liquid manure. So again, being sprayed on there has a potential to get right into our drainage ditches and eventually into our waterways. Again, just a picture of our concern with overspray. That is a drainage ditch full of liquid waste. All over the state, reports are coming in how the over-application of waste is contaminating groundwater. Spray irrigation by high-pressure end guns allow for massive amounts of liquid waste to be applied to fields 7 to 8 months out of the year, instead of the typical practice that you would see from small family farmers or sustainable farmers of in the spring and in the fall. The end result is that contamination is reaching our groundwater. The EPA in 2005 reported that pathogens are surviving longer in groundwater than surface water due to the lower temperatures, and that they're protected from the sun. Kewaunee County is faced with massive amounts of groundwater contamination due to their over-application of liquid waste by nearby farms. Headlines regarding illness come out of this area of Wisconsin on a regular basis. The most recent was published in the Peninsula Pulse in November, and it read 7 sickened by patent wells. One of the victims was a 4-month-old baby, and a quote from the article states, "I used well water to make her bottles," she said. "There was no odor or color to the water. There was no sign." Yeah, I'm not sure what your waters are like in your communities, but I know what ours is like in Saratoga, and it's pristine, and we definitely want to keep it that way. And so that is just another reason why we are fighting so hard to keep our community intact in the way it is. Excuse me a minute. Thank you. And of course, with the elevated contaminants also comes a significant threat of elevated nitrates. I would assume, and I would like to think that most folks here know that the standard for nitrates in drinking water is 10 parts per million, or liters. I'm messing up on that one, I think. I know it's 10.
It's both milligrams per liter and
Milligrams
parts
per liter.
million.
There you
It's the
go.
same.
Thank you. Thank you. But additionally, the ammonia from the liquid waste that lands on the soil definitely and eventually converts to nitrates and finds its way down into the water supplies. So elevated nitrates in our drinking water in your local communities can close down restaurants. It can close down hair salons. It definitely has an impact if you have any childcare facilities. As nitrate levels go up, businesses shut down. And those are things we're concerned about in Saratoga. Air quality is going to be one of the last areas of concern that we're going to hit here tonight. Air quality definitely decreases significantly around fields sprayed with liquid waste. Waste contains ammonia, hydrogen sulfide, and toxic stench. Toxic stench has actually been identified as a complex mixture of ammonia, hydrogen sulfide, carbon dioxide, as well as volatile and semi-volatile organic compounds. This toxic stench is not the typical sweet manure smell that we are accustomed to with our rural farms here in Wood County. It is a much more overpowering, burn your senses kind of stench. I have been out at the Central Sands Dairy in Juneau County. I have smelled that smell in my vehicle for weeks after returning home after taking pictures, and it is just nauseating. Depending on things like weather condition and farming techniques, these large-scale facilities and their odors can be smelled for up to 5 to 6 miles away, although 3 miles is much more common, and that is from the State Environmental Research Center from 2004. And especially we are highly concerned with our children. The Center for Disease Control documented that children take in 20 to 50% more air than adults, making them much more susceptible to lung disease, and that was lung disease and health effects, and that was a Kleeman study of 2000. Children have a greater number of respirations per minute than adults, and they tend to mouth breathe. They will have the greatest exposure to airborne toxins due to their size and their inability to detoxify. And lung damage in children is irreversible. And air quality is a reality. Residents of Thief River Falls, Minnesota were evacuated on 2 separate occasions due to hydrogen sulfide emissions from the XL dairy measuring above the standard of 30 parts per million. They actually measured 600 parts per million off-site of the facility. Countless residents became sick with hydrogen sulfide poisoning. The reality in Wisconsin is we are very similar to Minnesota. Our Department of Natural Resources, which does not have the power to enforce compliance or administer consequences for blatant violations, as our powers really have been stripped over the years. Protection is left to local communities and the governing bodies to protect and to preserve for the citizens. It took over 5 years for this particular facility to be shut down. The cows were gone, the spraying had stopped, but the waste in the lagoons actually remained because nobody had the authority to make them clean it up or remove it. So even when there is no spraying or fumes in the air, air quality is still a concern. This is a picture that I took last May of the dust storms out by the Central Stands Dairy. And again, just showing the center pivot irrigation systems on the barren field. And unfortunately, those dust storms don't stop at the borders of the field. Here you see a picture of fly infestation. Residents closest to feeding operations in their fields definitely experience a much higher fly population than average, and that was a Purdue study. And since flies are attracted and eat human food, there is a potential for spreading bacteria or pathogens to humans. And that was a Bauman and others study of 2000 as well. The bottom line really is this. What we have asked our Wood County Board to do is to protect us from all of these dangers. We have researched and documented liquid waste irrigation concerns and the health effects. I have included in your packets my references and the research cited throughout this presentation. We have asked our board to enact the precautionary principle. And that precautionary principle states this: when an activity raises threat of harm to human health or the environment, precautionary measures should be taken even if the cause and effect relationships are not fully established scientifically. In this context, the proponent of an activity, rather than the public, should bear the burden of proof. The principle implies that our governing body has a social responsibility to protect the public from exposure to harm when scientific investigation has found a plausible risk. And that is what we have asked our Wood County Board to do by presenting the idea of a ban on spray irrigation of manure. So this leads us right to the end of our presentation, and what can you do to protect your municipalities? In your informational packets, you'll find a copy of the ordinance the Township of Saratoga has put in place. And we encourage each township to review and consider enacting a similar ordinance to protect your own citizens from the detrimental effects of the practice of spray irrigation might bring to your community. Sorry, folks, I need a drink. There are many detrimental effects that coincide with large-scale facilities, such as the ones we have mentioned here, but really that's just the tip of the iceberg. And feel free to do more investigation on your own. We also encourage you to review your town and village zoning, if you have it. Some towns don't. And make sure it is specific and clarifies the type of agriculture and industry that you do permit in your area. We are not saying ban agriculture. We clearly understand that large sections of Wood County are agriculture intensive and the backbone of central Wisconsin. But it is imperative that we ensure that the viability and the sustainability that our local family farmers bring to this area. And finally, contact your board representatives and initiate a conversation regarding this practice. We have found that the majority of the board members are not overly knowledgeable about our concerns. There are those that are in the ad hoc committee, and there are those that are waiting to hear what the ad hoc committee has to say. And so we encourage you to reach out to your own board members and start opening up that dialogue and opening up that conversation. And as an elected board, if you feel the same way our board did and the same way we do, we encourage you to create a resolution and send it off to the Wood County board, encouraging them also to ban spray irrigation here in Wood County for the protection of all of our citizens and the environment. And unfortunately, time is of the essence. This graph here really shows the explosion of these large-scale facilities here in Wisconsin. And unfortunately, these numbers are not going to be going down. For those of you that are maybe not aware, the Wisconsin livestock siting law is currently under review. And it has been brought forward by It has been brought forward by citizen participants in these review sessions that part of the revisions may include actually taking away local authority from the counties and municipalities regarding the siting of these large-scale facilities and the methods of their manure dispersal. So I definitely do not feel we're exaggerating when we say that time is of the essence. And simply for informational purposes, I have included a map. I pulled this from the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources website, indicating locations of the current CAFOs in Wisconsin. So if we look directly at the central Wisconsin area, and we look at Wood County, every single one of those dots represents a concentrated animal feeding operation here in our state. So if you look at Wood County, envision 6 more of those red dots surrounding our county, and 33 statewide. So it's really not a question of if they're coming, it's more of a question of when they're going to get here. Concentrated animal feeding operations and their facilities and their methods of disposing massive amounts of animal waste, and additionally the toxins and the pathogens within, create a health risk for the citizens of Wood County. Our main goal was to inform you of the concerns, warn you of the impending threat coming to this area, and now to encourage you to go back to your municipalities, open up that dialogue and that conversation, and act as you see fit. If you wait, the Livestock Siting Board may take that control away from you anyway. I would like to thank you for your time here tonight and your willingness to serve on your local communities. I hope that you've enjoyed the presentation. If you would like to learn more about our group or what we are doing, we definitely have our webpage. It's on the front of your packet. We also have 2 Facebook pages, one mainly for Saratoga, the Saratoga Concern. That is our Protect Wood County and its neighbors. We also have Roman Saratoga Friendly, which is an initiative our group started to pull in local businesses that support what we're doing and support us trying to protect our waters and our areas in Saratoga. And I think we have about 65 businesses on our Roman Saratoga Friendly list now that are openly supporting us. So feel free to contact us that way. We also have an email notification list, whereas things come out in the budget and things come out in legislation, local town board meetings or Wood County board meetings occur where we encourage participation. We throw those out through an email. They'll come directly to your inbox. So if you're interested in receiving notifications that way, please let one of us know and we'll get you on that list as well. You can also get on that list through our Protect Wood County website. I think we're done. We do have, do you want to?
Before we get into any questions and answers or hopefully some good dialogue, I'd like Rhonda to make an announcement of something that we do have scheduled soon.
Yeah, can everybody hear me all right?
Yep.
Okay. On Friday, April 17th, if you wouldn't mind marking that on your calendars, we're really happy to be able to share an educational that's going to be taking place. We've had outreach from all around the Midwest to communicate on these pending issues that seem to be a really serious problem in some areas. What we have is the educational that's taking place. It's on citizen understanding, involvement, and monitoring of nutrient management plans. Our Wood County land conservationist, Shane Wickerfenig, will open the meeting at 10 a.m. We'll break for a complimentary light lunch at about noon, and Tressie Camp of Midwest Environmental Advocates will speak along with a farmer. We will be sending out invites and advertising in the next week or so. Please put this on your calendar. It starts at 10 a.m., goes till 4 p.m. on Friday, April 17th. That is going to be taking place next door and in this room.
Yeah.
We have
Not have a chance for feedback. They're going to leave now because it's a violation of the open meetings law.
I don't want to be on camera.
And I don't want to be in jail with him.
Yeah.
I will try to facilitate a discussion. If any of you have something you want to ask of the Protect Wood County people, or myself as a county board member, and the other two that are standing out in the hall. So,
Is anybody using spray irrigation currently in Wood
No,
County?
no. We talked to Stacy Martin from the Department of Natural Resources, right,
Yes,
Gail?
yeah.
She said nobody in Wood County. There is the trying to think of the name of the CAFO by
These people will know.
Auberdale.
TriStar, was it?
Some of you people from the northern end of the county,
They're a smaller CAFO, they're just, you know.
but nobody's
a little
using
bit
spray irrigation.
So this ban would not limit anybody in business right now? It
The
would
two
not hurt
concerns,
business.
if I may, to start the conversation, there were only two really repetitive concerns that people brought up to me on the phone. One was, and I heard a county supervisor one time mention this at one of the ad hoc meetings, human waste disposal. That was a repetitive theme that came up across the different sections of Wood County. The other thing that kept coming up was half blaming the county, half blaming the DOT, and half blaming the DNR. The fact that farmers need to get rid of their waste and their manure, and some of them are overflowing right now. And it's so hard for them when it's springtime and the DNR puts a time frame as to when they can legally get it on the fields. And at the same time, there's weight limits on the roads. I had one gentleman who said, you wouldn't want me there to tonight's meeting, but I ended up talking with him for 40 minutes, and he's right, I probably wouldn't want him here. But he was a great man to talk to, and my heart went out to him because he said, he blamed the county, and I don't know, maybe some of you other people here can speak to this, but he implied that in his section that the farmers were encouraged or almost forced to invest